Hello Year 4 Super Scientists, it's Mrs. Lancaster back with lesson 3 of our living things topic. We've already covered quite a lot, and last week we looked at classifying objects and creating classification keys. We looked at misdemeanor in the lesson, and then I challenged you to go off and classify something that you chose, and I gave you some examples of My Little Ponies, Marvel superheroes, flags of the world, football team strips, and one young lady in particular has really dazzled me with her classification key of My Little Ponies. So I wanted to share it with you today as an excellent example of what a classification key looks like. Now, Georgie has really thought about her questions and the layout of her key. It's really clear to see. I can see that she's thought about the need to split her groups into two, and she's thought about, when I ask my question, I know that I can only answer it with a yes or a no. So her first question that she chose, which split the group into two beautifully, was, do they have one colour in their hair? And it was yes, there were 4 that were yes, and then there were 4 that were no. And then she carried on thinking about sensible questions that clearly split her group into two, until she got right to the bottom, where she was able to classify and identify each of those My Little Ponies individually. It was a brilliant job. I was super impressed. So well done, Georgie, and thank you for sharing that with us. It's a good example of what people are going to have to do today. So we're going to continue our journey of classification, and this week we're not going to be classifying any old object. We're going to be classifying living things and thinking about the different features that living things have and how scientists use that to help them classify. We're going to learn a couple of new bits of scientific vocabulary, but that's not till right at the end of the lesson. I'm going to do a classification key with you, thinking about questions and thinking about that scientific vocabulary, and then I'm going to ask you to do exactly the same. So I've just moved over here because I'm going to be in the way otherwise when we look at the next slide. So this is the next bit for you guys. There is a video clip for you to watch, and to watch it you just need to click on here. It's about 7 minutes long, and it's going to take you through what classification is again, so a quick recap and a revisit. And it's also going to tell you a little bit more about the features of each of those groups of animals. So the fish, the amphibians, the reptiles, the birds and the mammals. While you're watching, what I'd like you to do is I would like you to think about this animal card here. Now on this animal card you can see there are pictures of lots of different animals. Now it might be that you're able to print that out, and that's brilliant. You might not be able to, and that is equally okay, because all you can do is you can just get a sheet of paper, you could draw yourself a little grid, and you could write where the ant is, you could write ant. Where the butterfly is, you could write butterfly, and you could use your bit of paper to do the crossings off. Now by the end of the 7 minutes you should have crossed off most of those living things. There will be some that you haven't crossed off though. So I'm going to leave you to watch and do your crossings off, and I will come back to you in 7 minutes and we'll see how we got on. Enjoy the clip. So the clip's all finished, and hopefully you've managed to cross off most of those living things on your animal sheet. I just wanted to go and just have a quick recap of what was on the clip, in case you didn't have time to write anything important down that you needed to, or you missed an animal on your sheet. We looked at fish, and the features that classify fish, or the features that scientists use to classify fish, is that they live in water, they're cold-blooded, they have scales and fins, and they breathe using gills, so they don't breathe air like we do. Amphibians, slightly different. They can live in water, but they also live on land, which fish don't do. They've got moist skin, so they don't have scales, and they're cold-blooded. That's the same as fish, but they lay soft jelly-like eggs. Moving on to the reptiles, they live on land. They're cold-blooded. They have dry skin, which is very different to an amphibian, which has moist skin. They have 4 legs, or, in the case of snakes, no legs at all. And reptiles can give birth to live young, or they can lay eggs. Now, birds, again, are slightly different. They've got ear holes, the same as reptiles, but they don't have the dry skin. They have got feathers and wings. They're warm-blooded, which is different to the 3 groups that we've seen so far. They lay eggs and they have 2 legs. But an important thing to remember is that not all birds can fly. I'm just going to move over here, otherwise I'm going to be in the way again for our next slide. So the next and final group are the mammals, which is what we belong to. And mammals have hair or fur over their body. They breathe air. They are warm-blooded. They give birth to live young. And as well as giving birth to live young, the mothers provide milk for the babies until they're old enough to either get their own food or to feed themselves. So slightly different to the other groups. Now, what I want us to think about is I want us to look at a classification key. Now, I'm going to try and classify these 4 different living things, and I've got here a blank key to help me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to think about a question which splits these 4 animals in half. Now, I know that hedgehogs live on land, and I know that birds definitely don't live in the water. So that could be a question. Do they live on land? It's not very scientific though, and I wanted to really use that scientific vocabulary. I know, if I think back to what I've just watched, that fish and amphibians are cold-blooded. So maybe that could be my first question. Is it cold-blooded? Okay, so that's my first question, and that's going to split my group into half. So I'm going to end up here with a fish and an amphibian. And I've got to think of another question to split them again. So I know, and I can see from the pictures, that this little frog here has got 4 legs and the fish has none. But fish have fins. So maybe my next question could be, oh, the screen's gone all funny. I apologise. Maybe my next question could be, does it have fins? Okay. And then, yes, my fish would go there, and no, my frog would go there. And I would do the same for the hedgehog and the bird, the robin actually. I could put, does it have feathers? Yes, it's a bird. No, it's a hedgehog. All right. So I'm going to ask you to do exactly the same thing, but you are not going to be classifying these 4 animals. Oh, no, no, no. You have got your own ones to do, and here are yours. So can you make, oh, still got my questions on there. Let's move those out of the way. Ooh. There we go. So can you make a key to identify these 5 animal groups? So that is your task for this week. You can do it on a plain piece of paper. You can make your own grid if you want to, but there is also a blank one on the Google Drive if you want to print one out as well, I think. So I'm definitely interested to see how you manage to classify and identify those 5 animal groups. So that's your little challenge for this week. And then there's a bit of a super challenge. There's a very strange animal here called a duck-billed platypus. And I wonder how you would classify that. Would it be a bird? Would it be a mammal? Would it be a reptile? Would it be an amphibian or a fish? So have a go at classifying it first, and then if you're really curious, you can click on this picture down here and there should be a link to the duck-billed platypus. I did say at the start of the lesson that we were going to learn some new scientific vocabulary this week. So you should have, right at the start when we looked at crossing off all your animals, your card should have looked like that. And you can see that there are 4 living things left. So next week we're going to be thinking a little bit more about the living things that you didn't cross off your sheet today. And we're going to introduce some new scientific terms, and they are vertebrate and invertebrate. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I am looking forward to seeing your classification keys. Please email them to me because I do love to see them. And I will see you next week to find out a little bit more about vertebrates and invertebrates. Bye!